Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Today, will Joe Biden go?
Well, here's my answer. I am running and going to win again.
Some donors and senior Democrats would like to see him step aside as his party's presidential candidate. But if he did, what would change? I'm Malika Bilal, and this is The Take.
My name's Ali Harb. I am a journalist for Al Jazeera English based in Washington, D.C. For the past few weeks, I've been focused on the U.S. elections and the fallout from the Trump-Biden debate last month.
Based in Washington, D.C., so you know that there has been nonstop chatter in D.C. and in the media since Biden's debate last month.
This morning, the pressure on President Biden intensifying as Democrats on Capitol Hill grow increasingly anxious about his campaign.
Well, the latest on Monday morning of this week was a call where 4 senior Democrats in Congress called on Biden to step down.
In the wake of that debate performance, at least 4 more House Democrats now say they believe the president should leave the race, bringing the total to at least 9.
This is according to Democratic Party sources and leaked reports in U.S. media. What is the mood right now in Washington?
Confusion, I would say, in one word, because we're hearing one thing publicly and we're hearing another thing through anonymous sources and through reporting. Basically, President Biden's debate performance was so disastrous that it showed him as, at times, incoherent, losing his chain of thoughts completely, that it brought home the concerns that many already had about his age. Democrats, officially on the record, very few have called on Biden to step down, but we're hearing about all the whispers and the backroom chats and all the frustration that many Democrats, including senior Democrats, are having with the president, and they want him to drop out. For his part, the president has been defiant.
There's been a lot of speculation. What's Joe going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? What's he going to do? Well, here's my answer. I am running and going to win again.
He said on repeated occasions that he will not drop out, that he's in the race until the very end, that he beat Trump once, he will beat him again, and short of a divine intervention, he is the nominee of the Democratic Party, and he will remain so until the November elections.
Okay, so I can imagine people in the U.S. and outside seeing these private conversations and these public conversations and wondering why. Because if we wanted to keep them all private, the Democratic Party could. Is there reasoning behind why we're getting this befuddled mess of messaging?
There's a sort of unspoken rule in journalism. People pass information to journalists to start conversations, to reveal something that's behind closed doors. And it's not a matter of coincidence that we're hearing all these anonymous folks talking about the Democratic frustration. Those who are frustrated want this conversation to happen. They want to have a debate over the fate of the Democratic nomination. And this is what's happening. We're having a sort of unofficial debate within the Democratic Party, semi-publicly, as I said, to start to put some pressure on Biden to step down. Because if Biden does not step down, if Biden chooses to continue as the presumptive nominee, there's nothing that could stop him. Democrats are sort of helpless in the sense that the decision is in the hands of Joe Biden. Hence, we're seeing these reports in the press, perhaps, to exert some pressure, softball pressure. And I'm assuming that in the coming days, this pressure will become more and more public, and we may see more names attached to these statements. But also, maybe they're feeling the water, and the defiance of the White House will force them to quiet down, and this whole thing will just go through the convention, and Biden will be the nominee. But the coming 2 weeks, I think, will be decisive in that sense.
Okay, so you said that Biden has been defiant throughout these calls. Let's start with what he has been saying after a debate that many people said was unwatchable. You mentioned a divine intervention would be what might be necessary, and that's a paraphrasing of Biden's own words. In an exclusive interview with ABC News on Friday, he sat down with George Stephanopoulos, and George asks, if you can be convinced that you cannot defeat Donald Trump, will you stand down? And President Joe Biden said,
if the Lord Almighty came out and said, Joe, get out of the race, I get out of the race. The Lord Almighty's not coming down.
Joe Biden is 81 years old, but that is not so rare in Washington. Is there really cause for concern, or is this just par for the course?
Well, there are a couple of things. So we have a lot of senior citizen folks in Congress, right? Chuck Grassley, a senator from Iowa, is 90 years old. Dianne Feinstein, a late senator from California, died in office at age 90. And for the final 2 or 3 years of her tenure, she was almost completely incapacitated, yet she remained in the Senate. Mitch McConnell, the Senate minority leader, is 82. Steny Hoyer, senior Democrat, is 85. Nancy Pelosi, former Speaker of the House, is 84. And the list goes on. The difference, though, is that the job of the presidency is more demanding in terms of being public-facing and in terms of decision-making than the job of a House member or a senator, right? Like, you have your finger on a nuclear button. If you're a senator, you have your finger on the voting machine and you're mostly voting for your party. So if you are a certain senator who's so advanced in age that you're being brought on a wheelchair, your aide will put your finger on the D, voting with Democrats. And then that will be that, which there is precedent to this sort of arrangement in Congress. If you're a president, you can't have somebody bring you around, make your decisions for you. The people voted for you to be the commander of chief, to issue executive orders, to pretty much single-handedly control foreign policy. Foreign policy of the largest economy and the largest military of the world. It's not just Biden's age. It's not just that Biden is 81. The debate showed that Biden is showing his age and perhaps acting a bit older than his age. He appeared as confused, as extremely exhausted at times, unable to articulate basic policy positions, unable to go on the offense on issues that Democrats ought to own, like abortion, fumbling answers. So it's not just the age, it's the performance and the concerns over the energy, if not sort of cognitive issues. We don't want to assign cognitive. We're not doctors here. But the appearance raised those concerns.
Yeah. So Biden has said he won't step aside. What are the arguments for keeping him as the candidate, especially when his opponent, Donald Trump, is also known for his gaffes, to put it lightly. He's also known for outright lying, and he's not much younger at 78 years old.
So the most obvious advantages for Democrats to keep Biden is the advantage of incumbency. Americans generally, any office, be it your city council member all the way to the White House, they favor the incumbent. And I'm sure political scientists have figured it out. It bewilders me at times. Like, you see in certain states, the most conservative incumbent and the most liberal incumbent get voted in by the same people. So incumbency...
Stability. No one likes change.
Exactly. As much as we pretend to like change.
Exactly.
So incumbency is an advantage. Continuity also, right? Like, if Biden drops out now, this is uncharted territory. This is unprecedented. So if I'm Joe Biden, I'd be arguing, I'm the sure thing. What comes after me, even the critics who are telling me to drop out, they don't know what's happening. They don't know who the next nominee is. And a third argument that's perhaps less convincing is that he already beat Trump. So you'd give it to the man who has done the job, right? Why change the formula if the formula is working? As for Trump is only a few years younger than the president. But many commentators have pointed out that even though Trump is not, a young man per se, he's still Donald Trump, right? Like you mentioned, the outright lying, the, sort of frantic deliveries, but that's been Trump. And Trump won the presidency against all odds in 2016 with this chaotic style of speaking and chaotic style of delivery, and governed very chaotically for 4 years and came close to retaining the White House. Whereas that's not Biden. The Biden we're seeing right now is not the Biden of old.
With other possible candidates waiting in the wings if Biden does step aside, what would that mean for the party? And for the U.S. role in Israel's war on Gaza? That's after the break. So, Ali, if Biden did step down, which is a huge if at this point, because as you mentioned, this is still a lot of speculation, who would run in his place? Is there a plan for that next day?
Unfortunately for the Democrats, there's no rubric here. There isn't a precedent to go off of. Hey, the presumptive nominee dropped out a month for the convention, and this is what we do when this happens. So it's all in the realm of the rules. The most obvious candidate to replace Biden is his vice president. Because in the presidency, if something happens to the president that incapacitates him, or if the president resigns, the vice president becomes the president. However, even though she seems like the natural replacement, there are many folks who say that the party needs a new candidate altogether. Because the Biden administration as a whole has very low approval ratings. The vice president herself has low approval ratings. When she ran for president herself in 2020, she did not poll very well. She dropped out before the first primary. So we're seeing all these names being floated, right? And again, it's like the official versus the backroom conversation. All of this is like whispers.
Because no one can be seen gunning for this position and still be in the Democratic Party.
Exactly. Oh, by the way, just like I preface this with all of this. All the possible alternatives have said, oh, we have no interest in this. Biden is nominee. We're backing Biden. So again, all of this is whispers and sort of unofficial. And I think the two most serious candidates other than Kamala Harris are Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan. She is seen as a very strong choice because she comes from an important, essential swing state where she is very popular, where she cruised to re-election as governor, helped the Democrats to win control of the legislature for the first time in decades, comes off as folksy, as likable. The other option is Gavin Newsom of California, who is, obviously the governor of the country's largest state, beat back a recall in 2021 rather easily. He is seen as a very effective communicator. So those are the two options other than Kamala. I mean, there are other names, of course. But again, all of this is a major, massive if and a bit premature because as of right now, Biden is saying he's staying in office.
Yeah. So the U.S. is going to have a nominating convention by the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And that is occurring this month and next month. And that's where the party delegates will formally select their candidates. If Biden did drop out, I wonder what that would mean for the Democratic convention. But keep in mind that just today, as of the time we're talking, this is Monday, July 8th, Biden called into the morning show, Morning Joe on MSNBC. And he angrily said that he is not going to drop out. And he blamed the elites in the party for pushing this narrative.
Come on, give me a break. Come with me. Watch. I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party who they know so much more. But if any of these guys don't think I should run against me, go ahead, announce for president. Challenge me at the convention.
Challenge me at the convention, which sounds like a really spicy setup for this convention, and I can't wait to bring our listeners along. What would that actually mean for the convention?
If Biden does not, I'm sorry to curb your enthusiasm, but if Biden does not drop out, he has an enormous majority of pledged delegates. It will not be that exciting. He's got the delegates in his back pocket, more than enough to secure the nomination on a first ballot. If somebody stands up and challenges him, it will be over the unpledged delegates, and that's not going to happen. But there's a lot of irony in this Biden statement because the Democratic Party in general blocks party challenges to incumbent presidents. Because generally, if the president faces a primary challenge, it weakens the president going to the generals. So the party protects the president from primary challenges.
Right.
And it did. So when he says, people had a chance to challenge me and challenge me now, it's a bit slightly misleading. And if he drops out, then the excitement comes in. Then you will have 4,000 plus Democratic delegates chosen by their states, and they will be free to choose any nominee they want, and you will have several rounds of election until the nominee wins a majority. But as long as Biden in the race, it will be a rubber stamping convention.
Hadi, what I think is getting lost in this conversation is something you just brought up, and so I want to delve in a little bit deeper. And it's the problems that Biden already had before the debate, represented by the 29 uncommitted delegates who will be at that convention because of Biden's support for Israel's war on Gaza. Would anything change on the Democratic platform if he did step aside?
None of the candidates that we talked about, the possible alternatives to Biden, have been marching in the streets chanting Free Palestine. So let's get that clear. So we're not going to see a sort of major, decisive, radical shift in Israel policy. They will still support Israel. But even Kamala Harris, her folks or somebody leaked to NBC back in March that she would have called for a ceasefire a lot earlier and that this is Biden's war. So even some of the other options who are very supportive of Israel and who have come out in full support for Israel, like Gretchen Whitmer and Gavin Newsom, if you hear the way they talk about Palestinian casualties in Gaza and Palestinians who are being massacred in Gaza, you hear more sympathy, even on a tone level, if not substance. So if Biden is not the nominee, it will create a chance, an opportunity to have a conversation about Israel. If he is the nominee, I think that space has been shut down since he won the presidency. And I do suspect that if he makes it to the convention, they will try to turn the convention into the celebration of his candidacy. They will try to have a normal, modern convention to boost the nominee. But I think for many voters, the cat is out of the bag already, and you cannot unsee that debate.
And that's The Take. This episode was produced by David Enders with Duha Mosaad, Mohammed Zain Shafi Khan, Veronique Eshaya, and me, Malika Bilal. It was edited by Noor Wazwaz. Our sound designer is Alex Roldan. This episode was mixed by Joe Plord. Alexandra Locke is The Take's executive producer, and Ney Alvarez is Al Jazeera's head of audio. We'll be back tomorrow.